Eagles Entertainment.
The journey to the draft is driven by AAA. AAA Roadside is their strong side. Make AAA a part of your game day today. AAA, go ahead.
With the 21st pick in the NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select.
You're listening to the Journey to the Draft podcast.
Welcome to the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA. I'm your host, Fran Duffy, and it is here. Senior Bowl practice has officially kicked off, and we are here to break it down for you on today's episode of the show with analysis of what happened on the field. We'll get some takeaways from the weigh-ins this morning, and we've got another exclusive interview from a college coach about some of the players down at the game. And it all starts with Draft Buzz, where I'm joined by Dane Brugler down in Mobile to get his thoughts on what he saw, not just at practice, but also from the weigh-in process as well. So we'll get some day one reaction to the day from Dane there in Draft Buzz. After that, in Pick 6, I'm going to take my crack at it. I'm going to take a look at 6 players that stood out to me after going through all the film from the day's worth of practice as well. And then we'll wrap things up with Mr. Relevant, where today I am joined by Florida State defensive coordinator Adam Fuller to talk about a couple of his players down there in Mobile. Hampton Nazareth, the safety from Florida State, and then his teammate Marvin Wilson. I caught up with Coach Fuller a couple of weeks ago, got his thoughts on those two guys and what they will bring to their future NFL teams, both on and off the field. Do not miss what Coach Fuller has to say about those guys. Before we get things going, just wanted to quickly remind you guys again about jumping onto our Apple Podcast page, leaving us a rating, leave us a comment. If you love the fact that we're coming at you every single day this week for all the Senior Bowl action, jump on, let us know. If you've got a question, we'll answer it. Appreciate everybody that has taken the time to go through all of this over here, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, really wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, that being said, let's get this one going. It's time now to start things off with Dane in Draft Buzz.
Now it's time for Draft Buzz.
All right, well, let's head right down to Mobile, Alabama with our friend Dane Brugler, who is boots on the ground down there. Not Lad People Stadium here today. We got the new introduction to the new stadium at South Alabama, Dane. But take us through the atmosphere. Well, what is the environment like down there? Obviously, a little bit different circumstances this year.
Yeah, I tell you what, Hancock Whitney Stadium on that South Alabama campus is gorgeous. It's a brand new stadium, state of the art. And today, the first practice, it was calling for rain all day, and so there was some worry, some concern that they might not get it in. They have to go indoors. We were able to be in the stadium outside. It did rain for a good portion of that second practice. But with that new stadium and that new turf, they were able to practice right through it. So it was great. It's good to see the stands full of scouts and evaluators, and good to see some live action on the field.
A little bit different than if it was at the stadium over at Fairhope. No offense, obviously, to the facilities over there. It would have been a little bit of a different atmosphere for sure through the rain. So, obviously, look, Tuesday is a big day for the Senior Bowl because it is the morning that starts with weigh-ins. And obviously a little bit different this year, but just kind of macro view, because I never talked to you on this podcast after the weigh-ins. So I want to give you a chance to let our listeners know. What do you think overall of the weigh-ins? Is it overrated? Is it underrated? How big of a deal is that for these guys going through that part of the process?
I don't think it's a big deal, but it's not like it's unnecessary. It's just a part of the process. It's something that, we have a good idea the size of these players going in, but it's also important just to understand their body composition. If a player is 300 pounds, well, where is he carrying it? And understanding just the way his body, how it looks. Is there a room for growth potential there? Does he look tapped out? Is it a good 300 pounds, or is there maybe some area where he can improve there? So it's something that it's an important part of the process, but it's not like all of a sudden the rankings are changing based off of what happened this morning.
So the big topic coming out of that was the decision by Devante Smith to not weigh in. I got to think that this was agreed upon before his decision go down to Mobile. Obviously, that is the big concern with Devante Smith is his overall size. So what do you make of the decision? What do you think the ripple effects are of that? He did all the other measurements. Those came in fine. But is there any kind of residual effects from Devante Smith not weighing in and deciding to wait until the pro day to do so?
Well, it was a little surprising because we already know he's not a big guy. In the spring, NFL scouts measured him at 6 foot, 170 pounds. And he likely played right around that range. And so, I'm guessing he's going to take some time now, add some weight before the pro day. But I don't know that it really matters if he's 175, 177 pounds. I think what's more important, he's going to be at a comfortable weight and you know, runs well and goes through all the drills at a weight that he's comfortable with. So I really don't think it's that big of a deal because, you know, if you like him at 169 pounds, you're still going to like him at, you know, 178 pounds or, you know, the vice versa. So I tell you what it does do now, though, is it puts more of a spotlight on that pro day to see, you know, how he tips the scale and just to see what he comes in at. It's just going to be a lot more instead of just getting out of the way now. A lot of people are going to be more interested in what that pro day looks like.
Yeah, I think it's certainly going to be it's going to put all eyes on that weigh-in at the pro day. It's almost like when we have those, you know, those discussions about guys that don't take, you know, don't run the 40 at the combine. Well, now it's like, all eyes are going to be on the pro day. Well, all eyes are going to be on the scale here in a few weeks when Alabama has their pro day. So just speaking of the weigh-ins, any of the guys that you say, like, all right, this guy was a big winner of the day, maybe they had a measurement that was really helpful for the narrative surrounding their stock moving through this part of the process?
Well, I think the winner of the weigh-ins had to have been Florida State defensive end Janarius Robinson. I mean, talk about looking the part. 6'5", 266 pounds, 35 3/4 inch arms, 11-inch hands. I wish the tape was as good as the measurements.
Yep.
But, you know, this is what raw tools, that's what it looks like because he has speed to him as well. But when you have that length and you have that size, it's going to entice some teams to maybe roll the dice a little bit. And, you know, you go on the offensive side of the ball, East Carolina's Deante Smith. He had the longest arms and wingspan of any offensive lineman here in Mobile. So, you see a guy with his athleticism and his length, you're going to gain steam throughout the league. Someone's going to take that chance. And then I think, Quinn Miners at Wisconsin Whitewater, I think he could be considered a winner as well because he carries his 320 pounds really well. It's not sloppy. And that was kind of the worry with him because when coming from a D3 program, nothing against that. I'm from a D3 program. But coming from a D3 program, sometimes the strength and conditioning is not always there compared to some of these other top programs. And on film, at times he looked a little bit overweight, but you can tell he's been training hard. Not only the body composition, but 33-inch arms, 10 1/4-inch hands. I think that was a little bit better than expected as well.
So I had Janarius down for me. 3 other names that I had. Najee Harris looking the part for sure. I mean, just getting confirmed numbers on him. Hampton Nazareth from Florida State. 2 guys we expected to come in and look body beautiful, and certainly they did. Baron Browning, the Ohio State linebacker. I would check that box as well. All 3 of those guys looking pretty good up on the stage.
Yeah, and I think that some teams, when you look at Baron Browning and look at those numbers, they're going to look at him and say, okay, maybe this is our designated pass rusher. Maybe this is a guy that, when you're at 6'3", 241, 33-inch arms and 10-inch hands, you've got a little bit of position flex to maybe be a downhill player as a rusher. But with his athleticism, he can also drop. So, yeah, Baron Browning's definitely one of the more intriguing players here this week.
So from the other side of the coin, we talk about Devante Smith and just the questions there, with him not weighing in. The guys that did come in and measure, I thought there were a few measurements that kind of said, all right, like this is going to, I would say, like, change the discussion around this player a little bit. And I think that you look at a couple guys really when it comes down to like arm length, and there are certain positions where that matters more than others. But some people are going to be looking at Chaz Surratt, Grant Stewart, the other linebacker from Houston. Both guys came in 30-inch arms. Wyatt Hubert from Kansas State, shorter arms than any pass rusher drafted for me in the last decade. That's going to be a number that hurts him. Aaron Robinson, the talented corner from UCF, one of the most talented kids here, also came in a little bit smaller across the board than people expected. Were there any other guys or any of those guys in particular that really stood out to you from the opposite side of the coin?
Jack Anderson, Texas Tech, offensive lineman, 31 5/8 arms, which is surprisingly low. He was a center today during practice, and he might have to be a center only with those type of arms. And then Drake Jackson, who, look, we know he's not a big guy, but 31 1/8-inch arms and then only 8.5-inch hands. That really stands out as a red flag. That's going to be tough to overcome for him. One other weight that is a little bit of a concern that I wanted to put out there too, Marvin Wilson at 319 pounds. he looked overweight this year. He played overweight, and here at the Senior Bowl, he looked a little bit overweight. He needs to be closer to 305, 307 to really maximize his value. Then I think it's also worth pointing out none of the quarterbacks came in with the small hands, so They all hit that threshold, so we can avoid that controversy now.
No question. I'm glad you brought up Jake Jackson, because he was the other guy that was just like across the board, shorter and lighter than scouts expected coming in, because I know the numbers did not match what scouts had coming in from the spring. So that was another player certainly to keep an eye on. So that being said, let's now get to practice. Let's get to where the pigskin was thrown around a little bit. We're going to start national practice. The Dolphins take the field first. The way we're going to structure this segment with you every single day is we're going to take a look, just 3 takeaways from both sides of the ball, and then we'll kind of fill in the blanks here. I am going in completely blind. I have not watched a down of practice yet. I'm going to watch it before I do my next segment. I want to get 3 takeaways. You can give me the first one off the bat. What's your first takeaway from watching the national team take the field?
Dwayne Eskridge is as advertised.
Nice.
On tape, he looks like he's moving at a different speed than everybody else in the MAC. And it looked like that here in Mobile. Corners, they struggled to press him and really contain at the line of scrimmage because he's so sudden at the line. He can quickly get that upper hand, that top speed. He hits it with a second step. And he's got that start-stop mid-route where he's going to be able to uncover. And not only did he have those athletic gifts and show them today, but he caught everything thrown his way. So, he debuted at number 76 overall on my top 100. And I have zero regrets about ranking him that high with the way he played today. It's going to be tough for corners this week, one-on-one, to keep him under control.
All right, let's get to the second one. Eskridge, he is a really, really impressive player. I'm excited to see what you saw from him on film. Let's get to the second one here. What's your second takeaway from national practice? Eskridge,
not the only Western Michigan prospect.
Oh, Jalen Moore.
Yes, Jalen Moore. I tell you what, his practice today was a little more understated than Eskridge, but still the same in terms of being impressive. He lined up at both left tackle and left guard. Very good balance in his pass sets. He can handle speed, he can handle power. He's got an anchor at the point of attack. And then when rushers were able to get to his body, he showed the ability to reset and recover. So I think he's going to continue to build momentum here.
People in Kalamazoo very happy with your first 2 takeaways. Let's go to the third one. What's the third thing that stood out to you?
Notre Dame really well represented here, especially on offense, but it was the 2 defensive players that I think really stole the show. Talking about the 2 defensive ends, Dalen Hayes, and then help me out.
Ade Ogundeji.
I knew you'd have it. So both of these guys, I tell you, they looked good. And during one-on-ones, Ade, they line him up inside. I think that's part of the appeal with him. Inside-outside versatility. Sure. He's got that length. He's got the speed. And they lined him up as a defensive tackle, and he used those 35-inch arms to shock the guard, separate, create a clear lane to the quarterback. Very interesting watching him as an inside rusher so far this week. And then Dalen Hayes, it's been full speed ahead for him. From the moment stretches were done to the final whistle at practice, he's been nonstop. Strong hands. He can deconstruct the tackle. He did that to Dylan Radens from North Dakota State. Speed to power. He went right through Spencer Brown from Northern Iowa, put him on his back. And then something I noticed, every time I watched Hayes come off the field, he went over to an assistant coach and just talked his ear off, going over various techniques. And this is a player who understands the opportunity that's in front of him this week with the way he handled himself in practice 1.
So Ogundeji is an interesting one because, first of all, he came in with just freak show length. He's got over 35.25-inch arms. The wingspan's out of this world. He's one of a handful of guys, and we talked about this a little bit when we did our draft yesterday with Eric Edholm. There are a bunch of defensive ends in this group down here in Mobile, and not a lot of defensive tackles. So I was interested to see who are the guys that, they're listed at DN, but they're going to be sliding inside. And obviously Ogundeji was one. Were there any other guys that you are listed as edge guys, but spent more of their time on the interior today?
Well, as you know, for my team yesterday, I drafted Teron Jackson to play inside, and he was playing a three technique role today.
And he came in light. He came in like
269.
Yeah.
It was a little bit lighter than I thought he might, because he looks more like a defensive end out there, but they had him playing inside. And just worth pointing out to keep the Western Michigan theme alive, Ade, originally a Western Michigan commit before Notre Dame was able to turn him. So just had to get that in there.
I like that. All right. Well, let's go over to the other side, the American team, coached by the Carolina Panthers and Matt Rule. Let's go to your three takeaways there. Start with number one.
Well, top wide receiver in the first practice really stood out, separated himself with Eskridge. We had another guy receiver do that in the second practice, Shi Smith.
It's your guy.
South Carolina native. He made the catch of the practice with this leaping grab that he had over the defender, got up there, a pretty impressive vertical and ball skills. And we saw him do that a few times on a senior tape.
I was just going to say that. I feel like that's a rewind back to like September and October.
Exactly. And so, but it was more than just the acrobatics for Smith today during practice. Really aggressive routes. So, he's able to sell the pattern and then use a sharp burst off his plant foot to create that separation at the top of the route. Defensive backs had a tough time with him. He's the type of guy that plays full speed all the time. And at times when you watch him on film, you could see that disrupt his focus a little bit. That wasn't the case today because he showed really quick hands. He stabbed the football away from him cleanly, put it away. And it got to the point during team drills where the quarterbacks, they weren't looking at other receivers. They were looking towards Smith because they knew there was a good chance of a completion when they targeted him.
Well, let's get to your second takeaway here from the American practice.
Second takeaway, this is the chance for running backs to show that they have three down value in a setting like this. A lot of drills, pass catching drills, a lot of pass protection drills. And Larry Roundtree, Missouri running back, he's not a dynamic player, but he's got vision. He's got footwork. He's a tough player. He has a pro future, but I think the key to his NFL role is what he provides on third downs. On that Missouri tape, it seemed like a lot of times on passing downs, he'd be on the sideline. They'd bring someone else in and, he would not have a lot of targets, but he did a really nice job today. Soft hands, body control as a receiver. And I think he held his own in pass protection as well. So, he is a low ceiling, high floor type of player at the next level. But if he performs the next 2 days like he did today in the first day of practice in terms of catching the ball and blocking, he's only going to help himself.
He's my favorite of those American backs. So I'm glad that he stood out to you. And we've seen so many times over the last few years where there are questions about running backs on third down. And then they come into the league. Oh, this guy only had 7 career catches. And he comes out and he has 28 in his rookie season. Or, oh, can he block? And then he comes out and he does a great job blocking his rookie season. I think you could see that there are guys that are going to make that jump. Doesn't mean everybody can, but it's possible for them to be able to make that jump and prove themselves. So good to hear Roundtree doing that on day one. Your last one. Take us out here. What's your third takeaway?
Well, let's go to some small school players or a small school player. And, I think it's easy to spot the small school guys. And I think that was the case with Robert Rochelle. I think it's safe to say he's never faced a receiver quite like Kadarius Toney. And it showed during one-on-ones. Toney got the best of him on more than a few occasions. And because of that, you could tell Robert Rochelle, probably a small school guy without looking at the helmet. But I'll tell you what, credit to Rochelle because he got battling back. His athleticism, it looks on par with SEC athletes. And that's not always the case with these small school guys. He just needs to play more disciplined, I know he's eager, he's aggressive out there, but he needs to play more within himself, better technique, better discipline at the top of routes. And so I'm eager to watch Rochelle the rest of the week to see how he can adjust and whether or not he shows those necessary improvements going up against a talent like Kadarius Toney.
There's a reason why I took him in my as my second corner in our mock draft there, Dane. There's a reason why. He's got that upside. I'm glad he showed that on day one.
Well, your team was, so I had to throw you a bit of love.
It's been mixed. It's been mixed so far on social media. There have been some people that said you were the clear winner. Others that have come out saying it was me. we'll say that I got the tiebreaker because Ben gave it a time. But Dane, we're going to let you go. It's been a long day for you. Excited to keep breaking this all down with you every single week or every single day here this week here on the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA.
Now it's time for Pick Six.
All right, so I can't let Dane have all the fun, right? So for Pick Six today, I'm going to go through the 6 players that stood out most to me after I went through a handful of periods of practice watching the film here on Tuesday night. Now, I'm going to start things off in the trenches with the national squad. That's Washington defensive tackle Levi Onwuzurike. I watched the 9-on-7 period and I watched the 1-on-1 period. And just watching the trenches with those two groups in those 2 sessions, I thought Onwuzurike was one of the best players out there. Really, really disruptive, stout against the run in the inside run periods, and had a handful of wins in one-on-ones as well. He's got really heavy hands, and I'm telling you, I can't wait to start digging into some of the team footage because I know that this guy is going to be making plays from sideline to sideline. He plays with his hair on fire. I cannot wait to dig a little bit deeper into this and watch the week continue to develop. But I'll tell you what, the first couple of periods, 9-on-7, 1-on-1s, you really saw the potential there for what Onwuzurike could be in the NFL. His ability to disrupt against the run and the pass, really, really impressive. So I'm going to go to my next one now. Notre Dame offensive lineman Robert Hainsey. Now, Hainsey has been a career right tackle with the Irish. Now, he was with the first team offensive line with the national squad on Tuesday at right guard. And he's played that all through 9-on-7, first few reps of 1-on-1s, and then he slid out to the position he's accustomed to, right tackle, for his last couple of reps. Had one loss, had one win, and even in the loss, I thought he competed well. Overall, I thought Hainsey showed really good athleticism. You saw him get up to the second level, and part of being a good athlete along the offensive line isn't just getting from A to B. That's a big part of it, but also when you get to point B, what's your body control look like? Do you have the ability to come to balance, make a block, get onto a defender up at the second level? And I thought Hainsey showed the ability to do that a couple of times in the 9-on-7 period. You saw him release up with free access, on a zone run. You saw him as a puller as well, going from right to left. So you saw him on the move a couple of times in those 2 periods. I thought he showed the ability to latch on to moving targets. And then also in 1-on-1s, I thought he competed really well. Last one here for that group, for the offensive line. I'm going to go with Creed Humphrey. And when I look at Creed Humphrey, there wasn't one play where I was like, oh, man, he was really dominant. But at the end of the day, after I got done charting those 2 sessions, he didn't really have many losses. I thought that he did a good job of showing the ability to recover. There were a couple times where I thought, man, Onwuzurike is really getting the better of him. Especially looking at the 9-on-7 period, I thought Onwuzurike really gave it to Humphrey, and Humphrey was just kind of holding on for dear life. But at the end of the day, Humphrey did a good job recovering and making sure that he wasn't completely beaten on the reps. So I think overall, I thought Humphrey did some really good things. I thought he had a couple good scoop blocks as a backside player and zone schemes, working out to the outside and perimeter runs. And then in 1-on-1s, I thought he showed that ability to recover, and that's such an important trait for offensive linemen. So my first 3 here, Onwuzurike from Washington, Hainsey from Notre Dame, and then Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. As of right now, it looks like Onwuzurike, a potential first-round pick. I would say the same thing about Humphrey. Hainsey, it seems like probably an early day 3 selection. So just giving you a little bit of background on those 3 players. For my next trio, I went over to the American squad and I watched a couple of the skill position groups work. Mainly, I watched the wide receiver DB 1-on-1s. First guys up. I kind of lumped them together here. But the pair of Clemson receivers, Amari Rodgers and Cornell Powell. You know what it is? Both guys did what I expected them to do. Cornell Powell worked outside the numbers, mostly to the right side, got some reps over on the left as well. He got off press coverage, showed the ability to separate, kind of a technician in terms of his ability to create some of that space, create some of that separation against a corner. He was able to finish the catch point. He's got some length to him. I liked his ability to just kind of hold his vertical stem, put his foot in the ground, and break opposite. I thought he did some really good things, getting off the jam and then working in a phone booth at the top of the route and creating separation late as well. So Powell did some good things. And then Rodgers just fighting through contact. And when you're a slot receiver, you're going to deal with traffic. You're going to deal with some press coverage. You're going to deal with some guys up in your face. I thought a couple of times he showed the ability to fight through contact. He made some catches to the ground. He made some catches over the shoulder, down the field. Again, doing what I expected Amari Rodgers to come in and do. I thought both Clemson kids looked good in this period. Aaron Robinson, mentioned him earlier when I was talking with Dane. This was a guy that came in a lot smaller than people were expecting. One of the allures of Aaron Robinson was watching him on film and saying, man, like this guy moves well for a guy who's 6'1", 200-pound corner. Look at this guy. He comes in like, what was it, sub 6 foot. He was 5'11" and change. Comes in a little bit lighter than people thought, shorter arms than people thought. I'll tell you what, he looked great in press coverage. He showed the ability to compete from snap to whistle. He ran with Kadarius Toney vertically down the field at one point and competed at the catch point, got the ball on the ground. So Aaron Robinson, good first day. I thought he was probably the best corner from that American squad coached by the Carolina Panthers. So I would say Aaron Robinson will be one of my fifth guy. And then for my sixth, I'm going to go with Tennessee wide receiver Josh Palmer. And Palmer is a guy that we don't really talk about all that often. Basketball background, good-sized kid. He's got great length. He's got a great wingspan. But it's not just, look at him go up and win it above the rim. He's not just a possession guy. He also was able to win vertically. Wearing number 85, you saw that ability to get down the field. I thought he showed the ability to win off the jam as well. He had one really good release. I believe it was against Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas, where he basically just shook him at the line and created the separation on a slant route. But again, his ability to win down the field as well. So you're talking about a kid with that skill set where he can win downfield. He's got some long speed. He's a long strider that can eat up grass, but then also go up and win at the catch point. And he's got some twitch to separate in a phone booth as well. So Palmer, a guy to keep an eye on. I thought that some of those receivers continue to make plays. I thought Austin Watkins showed some good flashes. I didn't mention Shi Smith because Dane brought him up earlier, but he certainly had a couple catches. I saw the catch that Dane was talking about earlier. These receivers, it's got a deep group. We talked about that during the mock draft on Tuesday. It's a fun group to study. It's a lot of good players down in Mobile. So those are the six, or we'll say seven players that stood out to me. Let's now get to my interview with Florida State defensive coordinator Adam Fuller. He's going to talk about Hampton Nazareth, the star safety who had a couple of nice reps today. I saw him in press coverage against some receivers. Thought he did some nice things, really did a nice job competing from snap to whistle. And then Marvin Wilson as well, who Dane mentioned earlier. Let's see what Coach Fuller had to say about two of his star pupils.
It's time for Mr. Relevant.
Well, excited to be joined here this week by Florida State defensive coordinator, Coach Adam Fuller. Coach, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's talk through a couple of these guys that are heading down to the Senior Bowl. And what I find interesting is just kind of getting it from your vantage point, because you just got to Florida State just over a year ago. You were hired December of 2019. And I think one of the things that's talked about around the NFL draft is trying to get to know these players, and you don't really know until you get your hands on them, until you get them into your building. And so having you just gone through this process with these two guys, with Marvin Wilson, with Hampton Nazareth, I'm interested to kind of get your thoughts on just your initial take on those guys as you got a chance to work with them over the last calendar year. And we'll start with Marvin Wilson. Came in as a big-time recruit at Florida State, played very early and turned into a very good player. I know you had heard great things, I'm sure, coming into working with him, but what were some of your initial reactions to your first interactions with Marvin as a player and as a person?
Marvin's very likable personality, loves football, is extremely hard worker, is very much a pleaser. He's an independent thinker in a positive way. He just wants to know how and why. And, the most impressive thing about Marvin is, when we took over, he had, had some individual success here at Florida State. But within my first couple months here, he sat down on actually, as we got into that third month going into the season, and said, Coach, how can I better impact my teammates? Like, how do I, you've seen my leadership style, how does it get better? What can I do different? And he shows up with a notebook and ready to go about it. And, so he's a humbled worker is probably the best way I can, and he's got a great personality. He's charismatic. It's a shame that he got, banged up with us during the season, that we didn't get to see the best of him. But as far as his personality and his mindset and his passion for Florida State, he's a relationship builder, and he left a really good impression on me.
One of the things that a lot of scouts, coaches talk about at the NFL is how do guys react to adversity? And obviously this past offseason, the 2020 offseason, full of cases of adversity. And Marvin had to deal with some of it on his own in terms of, coming back from his injury in 2019 as well. What did you see from him from that aspect? Obviously a leader for that team and, for the guys that were already in the building when you guys got there.
Marvin's kind of an old school approach guy. And what I mean by that is, don't tell me what's wrong. Just tell me how to fix it and give me the chance to do it. And, that was kind of his mindset throughout the season. And even up to the end, he wanted to be out there, wanted to do all that he could to give himself an opportunity to finish his career here the right way. We kind of had to help Marvin help himself in some cases.
Sorry about that. And then the last question I've got regarding Marvin is just on the field. Give us a scouting report and how you view kind of his strengths moving on to the NFL.
Marvin's powerful. He plays the game with passion. He plays hard. Just a very physical player that plays with a really good amount of power. He runs well for a big man. And he's got a pretty good understanding of football, but he's passionate about it, plays with a lot of strength and aggression. So overall, I think Marvin's somebody that can help a program, at the point of attack, and he plays with really good effort.
Coach, the last thing I want to ask, just going off of that, a lot of people will talk about the defensive tackle position, that ability to get after the quarterback versus being able to stop the run. Marvin, certainly one of the best run defenders in the NFL. I've always been impressed with just how good he is at the top of the rush and being able to try and get home and win one-on-one. How do you kind of look at that part of his game in terms of his ability to impact the quarterback?
Well, I think he's, there's a lot of pass rushing that does involve just effort and mindset. And I think he's determined. He's a determined rusher, where he wants to finish and he'll strain to finish. So I think he offers that.
Yeah, and then going over to Hampton Nazareth, we'll kind of start at the top with him. What were some of your thoughts on him as you started to get to know him a little bit? He was coming off an injury as well. What were some of your thoughts dealing with Hamza over the course of the 2020 offseason?
Well, my and Hamza's relationship, because I'm with the secondary every day, became a little bit more intimate in a way of just dealing with him on a daily routine. The thing about Ham is he only played 3 quarters for me in the whole season. And they were the last 3 quarters of the season, basically, the last 4 quarters of the season. So I went through the struggles for him of trying to make sure that we protected him from himself. We got him back on the field when he was 100% healthy. But his preparation, he's a pro with just how he sees things, how he wants to see things. I think he's learned. I didn't know him in his younger years, but he's a very open with just the things he needed to improve upon, and just his discipline with his preparation and how he went about his business were all things that Ham thought he needed to do a better job of. That was prior to us meeting him. So I think he matured a lot over the years just by speaking to him. And we got the best version of Ham, just not on the field because he just was extremely limited. The time that he did play, though, he was very impactful. Had a pick against Duke, had a couple pass breakups on 3rd down, had over 15 tackles in the game and a half that he played. And just, he wants to know how, he wants to do it better, has high standard for himself. And, just the way he came back with his rehab. And I mean, Ham, I have zero hesitation on him fitting into any locker room or getting coached by any style of coaching. Ham definitely, he's the total package when it comes to just his preparation and his maturity level.
I don't think a lot of fans understand what goes into the rehab process for a guy, that tore his ACL in December. And so he's working all year to get back. And then in that early parts of the season, trying to test that. What was that like for him, being with him on a daily basis? What was that like for him as he's trying to fight his way back into the lineup?
Just trying to keep him grounded with his own expectations. But there weren't many times that I had to motivate him or keep his spirits upbeat would be a better way to say it. Because, when before the season started, like he had these high aspirations that he would come in and be one of the better safeties in the country. And all of a sudden, game 1, he's not going to play. And then game 2, and then it comes down, am I ever going to play? And I don't really see a crack in his mindset at any point. And, we could have used him. We could have used him for many factors on the field and off the field. But, he never really wavered in his determination for playing. for playing here. I mean, just think about it. There's a kid with a lot of talent, did have film as a junior, got hurt, and he came back and played for us in the last, we played him about 25 plays against NC State, the whole game against Duke, and he's biting, scratching to see if we could play another one. And that gives you a little bit of insight into who he is.
No question. Coach, from that 2019 film before the injury, my last question for you is, give us a little bit of a scouting report. You talked about how impactful he was for the 4 quarters he played for you this year. When you see the whole body of work with Hamza, what does he bring to his future NFL team?
Yeah, I think he's got some natural run fitting to him. He's a big athlete. He's an aggressive tackler. His range and his ability to play in space is still getting better as he came back from that injury. I saw it get better from the first game he played to the second game. He was starting to move. So I never really coached him at his full speed. I think, I started to really feel it as we prepared for that last week in Duke, where I mentioned to our staff, because I didn't have anything to compare it to. The NC State game, he went out there, but I saw him get progressively better to a point that I thought he was starting to move in an elite way for his size in that last week that I had him. So, I think the sky's the limit for him. He's got a lot of position flexibility because of his size, because of his knee bend, and then his ability to tackle. I think those are all things at our level and on Sunday that are critical.
The buzzword all offseason last year was the positionless players on the back end of a back seven of a defense. And, there are players in the ACC, Isaiah Simmons being namely one of them coming out of Clemson. I looked at Hamza as one of those guys who could play from depth. He could play in the slot. He can come down, play in the box. When you have a guy with a versatile skill set, not even just speaking just to Hamza, but just that overall versatility in the back seven, what does that do for a secondary coach? What does that do for a defensive play caller?
What's funny, you're always looking for a guy that can match up on these one-on-one players that aren't the 6 foot 180 guys. You're trying to, there's these players on offense now, they're in that 6'3", 250, 240, and what are they? Are they wideouts? Are they tight ends? Are they H-backs? And so if those guys are playing offense, we need to be able to play defense with guys that can, especially if those kids are lining up as a wide receiver, like your corner may not be a corner anymore. You may call them a corner, but can they defend that person? Can they change direction with them? Can they match the ball with those guys? Can they physically disrupt them at the line of scrimmage? So I think Ham brings, some natural run fit that he can play in the box. I think he's got some overlap safety to him, but he's got some man-to-man coverage skill on some of these, miscellaneous route runners that are running around in these stadiums nowadays. So, he's got a competitive nature to him, and he's got enough smarts that he'll learn it. He'll want to learn it, and he's got a good overall ability game.
Well, Coach, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for visiting with us here on the Journey to the Draft podcast. Stay safe, stay healthy. Happy New Year. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Coach Fuller. Really gracious with his time, talking about Hampton Nazareth and Marvin Wilson, 2 very talented players that a lot of people are very high on around the NFL. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you go back, listen to some of our previews earlier this week. If you have not already, we've got a couple more days of action, though, coming from Mobile, Alabama in the Senior Bowl right here on the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA.
Raise a glass to that comforting feeling of an Eagles touchdown with the all-new Broad & Pattison wine collection created in partnership with Wink, featuring a Cabernet, a Rosé, and a Chardonnay. Broad & Pattison wines are the perfect pairing for any occasion. Now you can bring the sweet taste of victory with you to a dinner with friends or to the tailgate with your game day crew. Purchase online today at PhiladelphiaEagles.com/wine to stock up and have Broad & Pattison delivered right to your door. A portion of proceeds from every bottle benefit Eagles Autism Foundation.